Kyle here from allmediareviews.blogspot.com. Here to do sort of a blog, video blog, talking about a few things, and then up previewing. It's 2020, happy 2023, whatever, it's also whatever, 5773 or 5780, I think it's 5783 in the Jewish calendar and other calendars and stuff. Anyway, getting a lot of snow here. It's finally mostly over in Twin Cities in Minnesota here, like a lot of the country. We got like 15 inches or something like that over the last few days, and my video content hasn't been what I wanted to this week, but next few days hopefully I'll get more done. So first topic is just I've been kind of not bombarded, but reading. I read the Fates Warning book last year, the new Fates Warning book, Destination Onward by Jeff Wagner. Really liked that. Then I read the King's X book by Greg Prato. I forget the name of it. It's over there. It's like an oral history, King's X and oral history. So then I started reading a book that I picked up many years ago. My wife bought it when she was working at Barnes & Noble and got a deal on it. And it was a Redux version, separated out the Marillion book. And I've read about 100 pages of it off and on. I haven't invested as much time as I would like, but I'm getting through it. It's one thing I just read about how they did some shows with Queen at one point. I think it was in the UK, in the mid-80s. This is right when Misplaced Childhood come out after that. And Freddie had brought Fish on stage, I guess. I've never heard of this, never seen clips of this, if there are clips, but I'd like to see it, so. But yeah, some interesting stories about the background of how they form, all the different members in and out, and the perception, stuff like that. Of course, it's the issue with this book. There's a couple of issues with it. I'll do a more proper review. Is that the biggest thing? It's not an issue with the book in itself. Is that the time frame? This is a Redux version that I've got here, which came out in 2012. But I don't know how much they updated it through 2012, because I think it originally was published like in 2003, 2004, something like that. I think it might have been before Marbles, which is unfortunate, I guess. Yeah, John Collins, 2002. Now, the fact it's a Redux, I gotta believe he added stuff. So when I get to that point, I'll know. But I'm still reading around the period of Misplaced Childhood in the mid to late 80s, and after that, when they're working on what became Clutching at Straws. So on the topic of books, of course, I got that big dredge vault, and one of the things that comes with the largest piece, the most probably pricey and most work put into piece is and there's a lot more to it that I'm still kind of trying to cover, is this book. And I did show in the unboxing the Vault 1994 to 2022, and it's a lot. I mean, as I showed before, it's a lot of just visuals, scans of pictures and artwork and notes and stuff like that. But there's some writing telling the story, like articles about them in the newspapers, and they originally had a different singer. Gavin Hayes was the guitarist, actually. They were known as, and I can't remember it, I should know this, just being a Dredge fan. Bystandard, I think they're called. Yeah, Bystandard. Some of their backgrounds and stuff like that. And then the ages of the bands. The other thing I kind of just concluded based on the four members of the primary four. This other singer, I don't know how old he was, the original singer, Kevin something. But Gavin Hayes was the oldest. He was a senior in high school when the other guys, Drew Roulette was a junior, I believe, and Dino Campanella and Mark Engels were both sophomores. I believe that's what it is. So I always thought they were all the same age as me, and they graduated in 1994, or maybe they graduated in 95. But I'm 46. They'd all be like 46. But as it turns out, no, Gavin, unless he was like advanced or something, he's probably about 45 or 46. And then the other guys are a year, like Drew's a year younger, and the other two are 2 years younger. So whatever. I mean, they're still about the same age as me. It's just I thought they were all the same age, and all my bands that are actually like Joey Uppert from 3 is literally I want to say he's like 5 months younger than me or something like that. So he's he's like, so he's about the same age. Anyway, so this is a book that I'm going to dive into off and on, and I'll maybe do more, just sort of more stuff that I learned and just my take on it. I made a masterful, large. I mean, how many pages is this thing? And I got the two kitty cats interacting, of course. Oh yeah, it says currently writing new music, but it doesn't. It has numbers on it. I don't know if it does. All the attached 324. So it's 300 whatever it should have. Should have 324 pages, but I just I want to be careful with this because it's obviously a big piece of this thing. It's pretty pricey, it's pretty rare, and a lot of work went into it. So in fact, I even worry that either there's something in here, or might have something I hope something didn't get damaged with it. Even this, I don't know. No, that's just a little sticky thing. Yeah, my cats are. Specifically, the younger one is bothering the older one. So it sometimes goes back and forth. And anyway, so I ended up getting. I wanted this as something for the holidays, for a Christmas or Hanukkah gift from a friend of my wife's. Stephen Wilson's new autobiography of sorts, although it's not really traditional autobiography, I guess. It's called Limited Edition of One. Here's the quote on the back. I'll just show it. I like a lot of interviews, but even the untruths tell you a lot about the subject. There will probably be some lies in this book too. Some of them, things I myself believe. Maybe this is a lie too, and everything that follows is completely true. But I want you to doubt it. I want you to doubt it just enough. ... So I just started reading the first few pages. The only thing I'm just, compared to some of the books like the Fates Warning and King's X book, I believe in. And see, there are some pictures in this Marillion book, I think. Yeah, there are. Well, these are black and white. So, yeah. That was my kind of surprise, is that, for the cost, I don't know if there's a different version. That, of this book that has color photos. I was just kind of surprised there weren't color photos in here. There's some photos, not like tons. It's really just like a narrative. But there you go. But anyway, it should be interesting. It's not going to be like, this is the story of Stephen Wilson, how he was a musician, how he grew up, his parent, blah 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 blah. And it's going to be more like probably like anecdotes and opinions, perceptions. I'm not sure if a lot of the book is even about him necessarily fully. It's about just his sort of take. It's like an editorial in some ways. But I am curious about a couple things. One of the biggest ones I was telling my wife about the other day is if he mentions the story of Ariel Daniel. Ariel Daniel was a girl. She died, and it was been late 2005, I believe. She was a rather fanatical Porcupine Tree fan, and also Blackfield, of course. And this was the days of MySpace, and she actually formed what became the largest, at the time at least, populated MySpace fan group for Porcupine Tree and Blackfield and Stephen Wilson. I forget what it was. Anyway, I had talked to her. I'd read it. She was from Milwaukee, or not Milwaukee. She was from the Milwaukee area. I can't remember the city. Riverside, something like that. It was a suburb of Milwaukee. She was 17 years old when she died. Her and a friend, a younger girl, I don't know if she was like 13 or 14, were with her. They had done this, I think, multiple times. She was interested in film and photography, and she was taking photos of she was taking photos of trains and near the train tracks. And yeah, of course, you can tell she's trying to get really good photos, really capture the sort of the train and its process as fast as it goes, and got too close, and you can imagine what happened. I don't know like the exact details of how the accident happened when her and her friend, it was after school one day or something like that, ended up getting hit. Or maybe it was just they weren't in school. I don't know. She was 17. Her friend was 13 or 14. But I like Stephen Wilson's website. It was that one site he still has now. Steve SWHQ or whatever it was, .co.uk. He had a guest book. In the mid 2000s, guest books were popular on websites, homepages. I don't know if some sites still have them, but you could make a comment, say, "Hi, Steven, love your music. Hope to see you. I'm going to be at this show, etc. Love this song, whatever." I don't know how many people would sign it, but I signed the guest book and passed along the story, telling Ariel Daniels' story, being a fan. She had met him at a pre-show signing per se, I believe, at the show a year or two before that. Maybe there's that. So I don't know. It was in 2000. I don't know if it was in 2005. Whenever it was, there were photos. I remember at one point finding some photos of her because I friended her on MySpace and everything. And so he asked me, "Oh, that thanks for passing along, Kyle. Please keep me abreast about what transpires with the investigation about the tragic accident with her and the girl in that part of Wisconsin near Milwaukee, in the outskirts of Milwaukee." So I think it was like south of Milwaukee, but so then I guess what happened was a few years later, Porcupine Tree had come to Minneapolis in 2003 and 2005. They didn't come back. They haven't come back since, actually, technically. But they played Chicago and Milwaukee several times. One of the shows, I think it was in Chicago. It was Chicago or it was Milwaukee. One of the two. I think it would be Milwaukee. Ariel Daniels' parents were at, I think, and Steven dedicated. I don't think it was Trains. It's weird because it was about train. The song Trains, of course, and the story of what happened was with the train and stuff like that. But anyway, he dedicated a song to her, and so I'm just wondering if he's going through memoirs, and some of his memoirs are just trying to recollect things from the past, from his career and his life, if that was brought up in here. So, among other things, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's not going to be anything that I know of about Casey Crescenzo or the Deer Hunter. At least Casey Crescenzo, because I'm not going to go into full detail, but I know that they toured together. The Deer Hunter opened for Porcupine Tree with Coheed and Cambria as like 2010. And I know that Steven was like supporting Porcupine Tree, or Steven was supporting the Deer Hunter. He said some kind words about them on that tour, right after that tour, during that tour. And I know that talking to Casey a few years later, like a year or two later, I was like opening for Porcupine Tree, touring with Porcupine Tree and Steven Wilson specifically. He's like, "Oh yeah, he was great, but I haven't heard from him since. I haven't talked to him." And so like I didn't really ask him more details from my memory. So I haven't talked to Casey in a long time, of course, too, in person. But Casey then wrote a song. Casey, the Deer Hunter, had a song called "Shame on Migrant," which might not be at all about him, about Porcupine Tree, but that's when some just discussion. So I don't know, and that it's like you don't want to like misconstrue or just it's just whatever. Fans can believe what they want to believe, but I was thinking at least maybe there'd be some reference about the experience with Coheed and Cambria and the Deer Hunter, maybe. I don't know. Or he talks about lots of music, of course, historical music from the past. I know he's been a champion of current music, new music per se at points, but then I know in his like podcast, the thing he does with the guy from No Man, he talked about how a lot of recent, like they haven't done their album. It's called the Album Years podcast. They haven't done any like recent years of the last 10 or 15 years, like 20 years even. I think the most recent year they did was like 2002. Because he's not as, not necessarily not versed, but he's not really interested in talking about recent music like in depth. Even though he used to always publish playlists and his albums of the year and stuff like that, his playlists, I remember the playlist would come on like every couple of weeks or every month on that site. And it was a lot of recent music. He had the Mars Volta in there once. He had Mew, everything. So anyway, I just literally read a few pages of this thing, and it's in the pipeline. I don't know. I think I may still stick trying to finish the Marillion book first. Trying to like watch two or three TV shows or listen to multiple albums, obviously around the same time within days or weeks of each other is really obviously easy. Reading books, it's like do I want to go chapter here, chapter there? It's like a television station. This episode, that episode. Like I'm trying to watch Man in the High Castle, but I want to also go back to 12 Monkeys because I watched over 2 seasons. I'm like through the. I think I'm in the 3rd season of 12 Monkeys, or like toward the end of the 2nd. But I watched the 2nd episode of Man in the High Castle a few days back, and I want to get more into it after now finishing Silicon Valley. So, it's like a TV station. You have your episodes of the week. Can you do chapters of the week? I don't going back and forth, and I just get sucked in sometimes, but I just want to like focus on one at a time. So, I'd love to get please comment and subscribe. If people that subscribed really appreciate that recently. But if you've read the new Steven Wilson book, I know it's available. I think on Kindle and Amazon Fire or whatever, Amazon and Kindle, whatever Kindle. It's available as an ebook and available, obviously, I think a paperback and hardcover and different versions of it. There's like a much more advanced version than this. I'm wondering if that one has the colored photos. If you read that stuff, if you got the vault, of course, did you read through this whole book? Part of me wants to just get through this thing because among these 3 right now, Dredg is the band that I'm probably the most passionate about, even though Marillion's my favorite band, but. Of course, Steven Wilson has an album in the works. It's coming out. It's supposed to come out it's going to be coming out likely in 2023 called Harmony Codex. So, anyway, so my next topic of the day of this video, this blog, is what I'm working on. I mean, Peter Gabriel just announced there's a new song coming out called tomorrow on the 6th of January, Panopticon. From I/O. There's no release date on I/O, but I guess they're going to be releasing songs periodically, so it's coming. What date, when? My guess is it'll come out sometime in the spring or summer, because it's done. They want to get it out. And maybe the summer. It probably will coincide, or sometime if he does sometime with the tour, or there's another leg of the tour. My guess is, unless there's some kind of delay, we're going to get probably multiple videos and singles for it, so... there's other stuff still coming out, but it's been kind of sparse so far the first week of the year. You think that a lot of times with bands and albums that are finished, they usually they wait till we're gonna wait till the holidays are over and then make an announcement, and it hasn't really happened in extensiveness for what I'm like. Riverside. There's all these other bands that have albums coming out. Haken. I'm not. Riverside I might check out, but I haven't really been. I mean, the last album I listened to was a few years ago. It's the one after Peter Grudzinski died, I think, or maybe it was before that, but. But there's stuff that will be coming. It will definitely be coming that just hasn't popped. I mean, the 2 albums, Kimbra's album, A Reckoning, and Black Belt Eagle Scout, are the 2 sort of definite albums I'm looking forward to in the next month and a half that are scheduled right now. Small League Sing Ships, though, I noticed on their Instagram, are planning to at least release a single this spring. So. The album they've worked on, I mean, it's going to come. So stuff will come. It's just a matter of, you can't wait a few days. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe the 6th, which is like the release day. Maybe we'll get some more stuff. So, but the next thing is what I'm doing on the channel, these lists, of course. So I've been working on the last few weeks. I mean, I'm doing more songs of the year. I mentioned the last one's going to be from 2005, but... that's been taking a little bit of a backseat to after I finished the modern progressive art rock artist list and albums list. I'm going to do the songs, but that's not yet. That'll be a fun list to make in the next, how many days or weeks probably. I want to do metal, progressive metal, extreme metal. That's progressive, technical metal. My taste, and it's going to go first with albums. Maybe I'll do artists and songs too, just like the other ones, of course. But so it's going to... I was thinking about combining all the kinds of progressive metal that I like, because progressive metal is obviously an offshoot of progressive rock, but especially around the time of the turn of the century, progressive metal started to change a bit because everything was very, very... wasn't homogenized, but pretty much your sort of prog rock with heavy metal molding of just simplistic, kind of predictable, not predictable, but kind of recipe-ish to varying degrees. But so what I did was I got 2 lists. I was going to combine them. Maybe some point I will combine into one like definitive list or like definitive for the time list. But it's going to be 2 lists initially. One is what I'd call mostly clean, for the most part, clean vocals. Bands that have clean vocals. Or instrumental, I suppose. progressive metal or prog metal. And the bulk of that stuff is probably the 80s and 90s stuff. So it's almost based on almost eras. The other list is the more recent, the last 2 decades of stuff I've gotten into to varying levels of amounts of volumes in terms of quantity. But extreme metal, technical metal, largely almost all these artists, I think all of them even, I put in have some kind of non-clean vocals, screaming, growling, some black metal shrieks. Some of them have clean vocals mixed with, so I made a list though just to kind of just give a little a little preview, not a preview, but so I'm going to transition this and move it into the chopped up added video. Actually, I want to just add a couple more points. Daniel Johns, Silverchair, Disassociatives, and he did this project called Dreams and solo album a few years back. Released a solo album I didn't know about called Future Never. It's one word. Future, the F's capital, the N's capitalized. Kind of liking some of it, although the solo record he released a few years back, I was sort of on the fence about. It was a little too much sort of R&B soul, pop, not necessarily his musical DNA, but some of the vocal effects I'm not sure about. But I want to thank of Final Fury, Dan Fury, for bringing that up. I didn't realize he put that out. I listened to those podcasts he did like less than 2 years, a little over a year, like a year ago. That on Spotify, I mean, it was like less than a year ago, and he was like pretty much very apathetic's not the right word, but he basically wasn't interested in doing music at all. Although he's been doing auctioning and other stuff, he's just dealing with mental health issues in the last decade and change. But and Van Dyke Parks, who worked with him on the last 2 Silverchair, Diorama and Young Modern, was involved with it. So I'm going to listen to a little more. Some vocal effects a little weird, but there's some catchy moments. There's a Thieving Birds Part 3, which Thieving Birds Part 1 and 2 are on Young Modern. So that's something I'll maybe do a review if I get into it enough, a separate review for it. It always happens where by the end of the year, early in the next year, I check out, I hear about from albums in the year list, end of the year list, I find out about them, and then, or just at this time of year, people post videos or post lists, and I just see stuff that came out that I didn't know about, like Giant Sky and Mask the Phantasm last year. So the other thing I've noticed though about my YouTube channel, it's whatever it is heading on 9 years now, is that some of the recent videos I've done have more, reach more people when I'm talking about not music, but stuff in Hollywood, movies and television, mostly television recently. So I mean, maybe it's not going to initially be, but I definitely am interested in the next few months trying to emphasize, trying to do more with television and movies, doing lists, etc. That's probably what I'm doing, rather than so much review. I mean, I'm still going to do the television reviews. I never did a review of Puss in Boots, the new Puss in Boots movie, which I liked a lot. So just because it's like the numbers don't lie. That Silicon Valley review I did a few weeks ago found a lot more people than some of the other videos I've done. So that's just something to think about, kind of not compromising exactly, but to change up some of the content a little bit for what I'm talking about on this channel in the blog. And I've been posting some in the blog recently, which is weird, but I'm getting back to doing it a bit. All right, let me see if I can get this going again and go on about the prog metal list I was talking about. All right, so this is I think doing these lists. Okay, so I didn't even tell that really. My background with prog metal, of course, like many people, really was with Dream Theater, with Rush, and then Dream Theater. And I was not. I mean, I've said it before many times. I listened to like Guns N' Roses and Def Leppard, but quote unquote heavy metal, louder, heavier music, thrash metal, heavier types of metal was just. I mean, it was a step for me to listen to Led Zeppelin back in the early 90s. Get my ears used to it. So, but getting into Dream Theater, I kind of just, all right, I figured, I could listen to stuff that is a little louder. I mean, I listened to some of the stuff a few years before that, the the hair metal that had some of the heavier guitar riffs. But as a whole, I just wasn't. So, and I liked Dream Theater, and then all the bands that kind of sounded like were influenced by Dream Theater, like a lot of Dream Theater fans. But being a Dream Theater fan, prog metal was, or progressive metal was the primary taste, mostly. Progressive rock too, but progressive metal, and then metal, of course. I mean, yeah, Ozzy Osbourne, Black Sabbath, I knew too, but so I was into like progressive metal, prog metal, you call it what you will. That traditional sounding Dream Theater styled progressive metal, prog metal for many years. That, you know, and you're checking out bands left and right. It was just that's what Dream Theater was, a gateway band to a lot of this stuff. So, but there's a lot of stuff that it became at some point just kind of the same kind of stuff, kind of sterile, or just not all that entertaining or intriguing or inspiring music to me for the most part. But there was still a lot of it that I did, and so when I do these lists, I do the traditional sounding progressive metal with the clean vocals. A lot of those bands from that era that I did like, their albums will show up in that. Some of them did make the cut, and I don't know how many it's going to be. I think I'm going to be leaning towards 75. So these are the bands, though, that I've known. It's like so many bands that I've known that are not going to be in there. Just kind of read this off. And this isn't. I mean, it's like going to Prog Archives or Last FM and just looking at similar artists or metal archives, but of prog metal. Act, Adagio, Iron Zen, After Forever, Agora, Archie, Amaron's Plight, Andromeda, Animals as Leaders, Anubis Gate, Arc, Astronoid, Aryan, not an Aryan fan, unfortunately, Aztec Jade, Balance of Power, Barren Earth, Being, Beyond Twilight, Blotted Science. Blotted Science actually probably belongs to a different part of the list. Brainstorm, Caligula's Horror, Caesarean, Chrome Shift, Circus Maximus, Cloud Kicker, Cloudscape, Communic, Condition Response. I like that's their local Condition Response, Pavlov's Dog, but Cryptic Vision, Synthesis. I like Synthesis, the offshoot of the guys from Zero Hour, but I can't remember the band that had the word sun in it. Dark Suns, I remember. There's another band that has the like Silent Sun or something of the sun. Dead Soul Tribe, Digital Ruin, Divine Regale, Dominici, Charlie Dominici from the original singer of Dream Theater, when they were known as Dream Theater. Dreamscape, Dysrhythmia, Idola, Elder, Eldritch. Although Elder, I'm not going to like, they're getting popular now. I want to spend more time with them, but Elegy, Empty Tremor, Esocaries, Event, Evil Wings, Exevius, Explorers Club, Galexia, Haken, Ice Age, Inductee, Into Eternity, Intronaut, Iron Vein, Ivanhoe, Jagdpanther, Catatonia, KO Dot. I'm not a fan of KO Dot. King Crow, Clone. I mean, KO Dot isn't really metal, but I was making this list and I didn't organize it perfectly. Labrie solo music, Clone, Labyrinth, Leviathan, Madsword, Mastermind, Maya, Mind's Eye, Mind Key, Nevermore, Nightingale, Nightwish, Nova Collective, November, Oceans of Set, Oceans of Slumber, Odd Logic, Odin's Court, Pagan's Mind, Pain's Grave, Periphery, Planet Sarcasm, Polyphia. They're newer, sort of mathy kind of stuff, but getting popular. Primary, Pyramids, Pyramid Theorem, Read and Zero, Redemption, Richelieu, Sabaton, Sanctuary, Sandvoisen. I think it might be one word, not two. They're German, I think. Scar Symmetry, Seventh Wonder, Silent Force, Marcus of Agoli, Sleep Parade, Soen, Sons of Apollo, Spectre, Star One, Stramonio, Stride, Subsignal, Sun Cage, Suspire, Symforce, Tad Morose, Tetrafusion, Trio Escapes, Fox Tempest, The Mayan Factor, The Ocean, Therion, Law Chamber, Threshold, Time Machine, Tomera, Tourniquet, Under the Sun, Van Gogh, Venturia, Vola, Voyager, Wastefall, Wilderun, Witherfall, Witherscape, Wolverine, Zealot Z. And then I made a list of some other bands that aren't on the list. Not so much that they're not something I don't like, they're not metal really. So Bent Knee gets heavy, Cairo. A lot of bands on Magna Carta, really. There's only a few of them that I would really call really prog metal. Circle Takes Square. They're more math core, but I don't know. Coheed and Cambria, again, the Dillinger Escape Plan. Enchant, Stratosphere, Exotic Animal Petting Zoo, Fair to Midland, Gatherer, Gospel, Incubus, And Iron Maiden, it's not that they're not metal, they're not prog, not really prog, I mean, they are, but they don't really belong on this. Judas Priest, also Caddisfly, they're not really metal. King's X aren't really, much of they were on Metal Blade, and they're associated with a lot of metal bands. Long Distance Calling, like post-metal, heavy post-rock, Magellan, not really metal. Megadeth, not really prog metal. Metallica, they're progressive, but again, they're not really kind of fit in sort of this box that I'm making, which I'm sort of a hypocrite for doing that, because I don't like boxes. Mr. Bungle, I like some of their songs, but again, it's just not. But granted, I will say that, I'm just not spoiling much, but Faith No More is going to be showing up, even though they're not traditional prog metal either. But they're a metal band, and they're doing progressive stuff. I guess it's sort of, why isn't Mr. Bungle on that? And I just like Faith No More a little more also. Platypus, The Jelly Jam, Porcupine Tree again, Secret Chiefs 3, Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum. Not enough into them, even though I saw them live, I think twice maybe. Anyway, Spock's Beard, not metal. Thank You Scientist, not really metal. The Gathering's really not prog metal, even though I get associated with it. I like Annika, especially in a lot of their albums. 3, they've been on Metal Blade. They get heavy at times, but again, not metal. Tiles aren't really metal. Time of Orchids, again, and Over. Over's definitely metal, but again, they're extreme at times. But I mean, I probably could have included them, but decided just to not. And then I have just a few of the hordes of. Okay, there's not enough time to consider. I haven't heard enough music to really like Atheist and Circle to Circle, Freak Kitchen, Gordian Knot, Hammers of Misfortune, although I liked one album from them, but it's been so long. I mean, a lot of the albums I'm going to be including are going from very familiar to sort of somewhat familiar. Lexeme, that's a band that didn't really work. They it's a demo, but Magnitude 9, Mekong Delta, Slow Fag, Spastic Inc., Toxic, also Luke Calderola from Soundscape and Winter Song. So, and then power metal, of course, crosses over, and there's hordes of power metal bands, and power metal is something I only like in small doses. The right kind of power metal I like, but Avantasia, Edguy, Halloween arguably should be on the list. I like Keeper of the Seven Keys. I have the first one, I think, on vinyl. But, I don't know. I may do a revise at some point of these. I may just combine the whole thing, like I did with the Empire stuff. Gamma Ray, Nightwish, Rhapsody. I think Nightwish isn't typical power metal, but I guess they get associated with that. It's not Arctica I like because they're experimental, but again, they're power metal, really. Stradivarius and Symphony X. I'm not a Symphony X fan as much as I tried to get into them. I bought the New Mythology Suite album. I saw them at Prog Power USA. One time I watched them. The few other times they were there, and I don't think I even sat through more than a few songs. But so that's kind of the gist of the stuff that's not going to show up on these lists. The other thing I should say, and I'm still in the process of editing, is that there's some albums on the list that I know mostly by reputation, but not experience listening to. It's sort of sacrilege not to include them, but I've decided, at least as the compromise, since I don't have enough time probably to sort of like take them in before I want to make these videos and stuff, is I'll just kind of include them as like a bonus. It's like, may find their way onto the list at some point. It's like 5 albums, I think, 4 or 5 albums. It's like, I know the album, I've maybe even listened to a few songs from it, but it's been a long time, and, a few specific artists. So, anyway, that's about it. I have to do a bunch of editing to get this thing up, but that's sort of my video blog / prog metal, what would you call it? Just, introduction of sorts. I also should mention that I did do what was like a slideshow, like 3 to 5 minutes, like 3 or 4 minute slideshows of decade by decade of prog metal and extreme metal. So, is there going to be crossover? Yes, it's going to be like 90 to 95% probably the same lists. I'm not sure, but I'll actually be talking about them, and I'll be ranking them in this case, and they're going to be combined, sort of. But anyway, thank you for watching. Again, please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Really appreciate the people that have subscribed recently, and I'll see you next time.